Hello, everybody, and welcome to the end of Yo-Yo Organizing. I've got my friend Brian Cohn and my trusty colleague Maya D. Haynes on the line with us tonight. Oh, I'm going to turn off this lovely alpha brainwave music. I'm going to assume that we're all in the zone now. We don't necessarily need that music playing any longer. We are bi-coastal. We've got folks from all over the world on the call with us today, so I'm delighted about that. And I want to say up front that we're kicking it California style tonight. We're gonna relax some of the New York edge, and we're gonna be a little more expansive. Brian is out in San Diego, and we're gonna walk our way through this presentation in a focused and yet chill kind of way. So be a departure for me, but I'm looking forward to the support from Brian in embracing a more California style of teaching.
Fantastic.
So Brian, thanks for being with us tonight, and Maya, as always, it's great having you on the call, monitoring the chat and participating as needed. So everybody, tonight, the topic is really ending yo-yo organizing and how to get organized without stress, anxiety, or overwhelm. And I'm going to bet, given that I've been doing this work since 1996, and I've worked with over 100,000 people, that the idea of getting organized without stress, anxiety, or overwhelm is appealing. And certainly the idea of learning how to stop yo-yo organizing is also something that resonates with you, because you're here with us. And
how many people in here do yo-yo organize? I've done it before, where I would power clean for about 4 or 5 hours, and then I wouldn't want to touch anything for a few days, and it would just get disorganized again. So how many people here have done that?
Let's see a show of hands.
Yeah, people are. Oh,
and it's lighting up. Yeah, there it is.
Yep.
Excellent. That's what we wanted to see.
So we talk about yo-yo dieting a lot, and there's all sorts of ways to try to get around that. But yo-yo organizing is as prevalent, if not more so, of a challenge. And we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah, definitely. It is. It's one of those number one bugaboos that people are challenged with, as we can see from the folks who are on the call with us. So there we go. When Brian and I first proposed putting together this webinar, we were talking, and he said, so what are the secrets? So what are the secrets to getting organized without stress, anxiety, and overwhelm? And for me, I thought, I don't know if there are any secrets, and perhaps you can relate to this as well. I think when you do something for a while, Malcolm Gladwell certainly talks about in the book Outliers, the idea of after 10,000 hours of doing something, you achieve a degree of expertise that is certainly coveted, and also it becomes second nature to you. And I think that certainly for me as an organizer, I crossed 10,000 hours quite some time ago, and I don't think of them as secrets. I just think of them as how I do my work. But Brian, I think it's true that the more we talked about it, it became clear that there probably are things that are second nature to me that are not obvious to the average person who's struggling with too much clutter, disorganization, and challenged time.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that happens when you become an expert at anything is you start to become numb to your knowledge, and you almost are surprised when somebody doesn't know what you know. And just working with you, I've seen you do things that I've never even thought of before. And I thought, what are some of these secrets? There's got to be secrets that professional organizers are either aware of or unaware of, that they're not talking about and not able to share because they're just so used to it.
Yeah.
So that's what this webinar is. We're sharing 3 of the top secrets that we're able to get out of Andrew from all this.
Yeah, excellent.
Without stress, anxiety, or overwhelm.
Yeah. So to dovetail onto that, I would say that the number one secret is that it's all in it's all in your mind. Now, if you're looking at, if you're at home, if you're at the office and you look around and you think, Andrew, this is not all in my mind. I mean, look at the pile of stuff that I'm surrounded by. This is not all in my mind. But what I'm saying is that the mindset shift is the first place that you need to adjust before anything else is going to open up. It's for those of you who know me, and there's a lot of people on the call who have spent time with me. They've been in a class with me. They've taken classes at Unstuff University. They've worked with me privately. You know that I am not a particularly woo-woo person. I mean, even though I'm bringing my best California mindset to this presentation, I like math. I like things neat and tidy, and I like being able to move from point A to point Z in a methodical way. And what I discovered is there are two mindset shifts that have to happen for you to be able to make progress. And the first one is to forgive yourself for wherever you find yourself, that just to acknowledge that it's not your fault. Doesn't matter what you did before you got here, literally right here in this moment with us. The sooner you can let go of that negative conversation, the easier it's going to be for you to take in the information that we're going to share with you tonight and to be able to make changes on the other side of this webinar. Anything about that else, Brian, that you want to share?
No, it's awesome.
Great. And so when we think about the professional, or the trade secrets that I'm going to share with you tonight, there is a way to apply them. They're not complicated. They're actually rather simple. They're not always easy, but they are pretty simple. And so we're going to cover those tonight. I'm going to share my top clearance secret clearance with you, my professional organizer, my NAPO credentials. I'm going to rip off the veil. I'm going to show you what's going on behind the curtain. So. And everybody wants to know. I mean, every place I go, and Brian, certainly when we first met, you asked me, so how did you become the most, I'm embarrassed to even say it, the most organized man in America. The press named me that. I'm happy to wear it. The journey to professional organizer and to how I got here was really 21 years ago. I got a gig co-producing an award ceremony at the Kennedy Center. One of our awardees was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. I came to New York to get photographs to put together a slideshow, because 21 years ago PowerPoint didn't really exist in the way that it does. So I needed photographs, and I needed actual photographs from him. So in the process of going through his files, things were a mess. Couldn't find what I was looking for. Things were misfiled, mislabeled, missing. And I found what I needed after a couple of hours in his office. And at the end of that process, they turned to me and said, would you be interested in organizing our photographs for us? And I said, wow, that would be a tremendous honor. I would love to do that for you. So we made a date for me to go to work. We did the award ceremony happened. We made a date for me to go to work. And the day before I was supposed to go to work, they called me up and rescheduled. Now, this is another one of those things that, this is like cleaning before the housekeeper comes, right? I mean, you're never ready. It's never the right time. That's one of those stories that people tell themselves is, soon I'm going to be ready to get organized, just not right now. And this was
get more organized first.
Exactly. I got to get organized before I can get organized. And I say this all the time. I have a favorite statistic, which is that the average adult tells themselves 200 lies in a day. They tell 200 lies a day. They don't. Not all of them are to yourself, but probably 2/3 of them are to yourself, and 1/3 of them are uttered out loud. So anyway, made a date, rescheduled, made a date, rescheduled, made a date, rescheduled. The last time they rescheduled, they said, when we're ready to proceed, we'll get back in touch with you. And as I said, this is something that in the moment totally freaked me out. I was crestfallen. I had no idea, like, what did I do? Like, why don't they want to do this project? They were so fired up and ready to go. 21 years later, I realized that this happens all the time, that people just in that yo-yo organizing way, you get fired up. You like, oh, I'm on fire, I'm ready to do this. And then something happens and your wings get clipped. And then you're back in like, well, tomorrow, later, Someday.
Procrastinating.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I never went to work for that Nobel Prize winner, but I did tell a friend who I was doing copy editing with at the time that I had this gig, and she referred me to an accountant. I built a filing system for the accountant, and the accountant started referring people to me left and right. And it was crazy. I was never anything that I thought I was going to be doing, but the work just kept coming and coming, and I could see the impact I was having in people's lives. And people who were previously stuck in a place of immobility, things were cracking open for them, and the light bulb was going on and things were changing. It was a mindset shift for me, because at the time I thought that this was some sort of a way station in my professional theatrical career, and that I would do this on the side, but I was going to continue working in the theater. But it was one of those critical moments where I had the opportunity to say yes to something instead of saying no, and a moment of grace where I said, I can always go back to doing plays. I know how to do them. I'm gonna walk forward and see how far this goes, and here we are today. So,
Cool.
yeah. So some of the ways that people try to get and stay organized are here for you, and you can see how many of these resonate with you as well. So we know about yo-yo organizing. We've already acknowledged a bit of that, but it's so prevalent that people, they get excited, they see an opportunity, they dig in, and then they get tired, and they think, I'm just going to take a snack, or I'm going to check my email. They walk away from the task, and they don't have it's like getting lost in the wood. It's like Hansel and Gretel, right? I mean, you think you have a plan to get home, but the breadcrumbs are gone, and now you're just trapped in the woods and there's no place to go. It's a horribly demoralizing experience to want to get organized, start getting organized, feel deflated, and then just end up stuck there. And Brian, I mean, you can relate to that.
Yeah, my wife and I have done that for years, and thankfully we've broken that habit from what we've learned from you. But yeah, I can completely relate, and especially we would yo-yo organize when company was coming over. Even yo-yo hiding things was one of the strategies that we would use.
I see that all the time at clients. I show up and there are bags and boxes and bins that they have, because company was coming, they would just throw everything in there, throw it in a closet. I don't know if you can relate to that, anybody who's on the call with us, but somebody's coming, people are raising their hands again. You just throw everything in a shopping bag, throw it in a closet, slam the door, and it's almost, it's out of sight, out of mind for a minute, but nothing changes.
Yeah, and I always used to feel, I'm like, as long as I can't see it,
it can't be that bad.
Yeah. But what that was doing to me is I never felt organized emotionally, because in my own home, I would always know that stuff isn't, so it would be an energy drain.
Yes, I think that is that enervation that happens, that sense of just feeling beat up and not even safe in your own home is, I mean, I see it every day at work, and it's a horrible feeling. So, people try acronyms and mnemonics. I know that getting organized is simple. It isn't always easy, but it is simple. And I think if you start to get lost in games that you're playing with yourself, ways to try to remember things. When I teach, I often talk about, for those of us who are old enough to remember the Ed Sullivan Show, he used to have that guy on the show. And for those of you who are not old enough, you can Hulu it, and you'll see this guy. He used to set up a series of sticks on the apron of the stage, and he'd spin these sticks, and there would be plates spinning on the top of them. And his whole routine was running back and forth across the stage, trying to keep those sticks spinning. And in my experience, I think people who are not organized are like the plate spinner. You're just trying to keep everything in the air. Inevitably, plates are flying off the sticks. And so it's really important to recognize that cleverness is not going to get you out of it. Cleverness didn't get you into it. Cleverness is not going to get you out of it. It's simple and methodical, but it's not going to happen through word games and things like that. And as we said, trying to retrace your steps. How many of you have at various times played that game with yourself where, okay, so I walked into the house, what did I do with my keys? What did I do with my bag? Where's my cell phone? Where was the last place who was I talking to? Where did I set that down? And how many times do you walk around your house and you rip apart the sofa, you start to pull apart your bed thinking it's got to be here is it in the house? Is it in my car? Where is it? And that is it's another one of those things that gives you a false sense of having accomplished something when you finally track it down. But let's be clear, you can never get that time back. Those 5 minutes, those 10 minutes, those 15 minutes, you can tell yourself a story about that time, but you're not going to get it back, Willpower. I mean, when we reference the same idea as yo-yo organizing, yo-yo dieting, so many people think that I just need, I'm lacking willpower. I just need to get more willpower.
Well, a lot of people, when we try to use willpower to make a change in our life, we think sometimes it's a character flaw. If we're unorganized, or if we're overweight, or not doing our taxes on time, that somehow it's a character flaw. In reality, using willpower as a strategy to create change isn't what the top people do. If they're great at being fit, or if they're great at being organized, they're not using willpower as a strategy. Willpower will always fail. It's one of the things that I learned over the past couple of years being in personal development and learning some of these things is that it's not about willpower. So if somebody's planning on like a New Year's resolution, hey, I'm just going to look myself in the mirror and I'm going to start getting organized, that you might have 3 days, 3 weeks, but willpower it's not a viable plan.
Yeah, no, and specifically around New Year's resolutions, I think the statistic is something like 73% of the New Year's resolutions within 3 weeks, people have dropped them.
Yeah, well, we've made it, like Hollywood, especially, like all the movies and TV, you have this turning point in a movie and a character. And it's just at one point now they've got the willpower that they didn't have before. And unfortunately, real life isn't like that. You don't all of a sudden, you're not just given willpower out of nowhere because you decide to. And
yeah.
So kind of unfortunate.
Exactly. And the weekend warrior too is just another version of the binge or the yo-yo organizing. It's that thing of, I'm setting aside the weekend, and come hell or high water, this is the weekend. We're going to make or break it. We're not leaving the garage until it's done. We're not leaving the basement until it's done. We're not leaving the kitchen until it's done. We're not leaving the bedroom until it's done. And so often when you're in narrative, it's unlikely that you don't even know what finished looks like. So you're already setting yourself up for failure, and sadly, failure breeds failure. If you are not successful, the next time you try to do it, you're already feeling more defeated when it's,
Yeah, and the way the brain works, with the yo-yo dieting is we always want to try to reduce disappointment. So if we do the binge organizing, or if we do the weekend warrior stuff, and then we get disappointed again, what ends up happening is we build more and more resistance every time we relapse. And then it just feeds into a cycle that it can be broken, thankfully. But every time we get that disappointment, it just makes it harder next time.
Yep. Yeah. Moving, people like to rely. I can't count how many times I've been brought in on jobs where people are moving and they think that that's going to be the ticket, that by being forced to relocate their home or their office or both, that's when they're going to get organized. And over and over again, what I see is the macro version of hiding the stuff, is that you get so far into the process of moving, and then you just throw everything in a bin and say, screw it, I'll deal with it on the other side. When we get there, then we'll have more time. It's that lie. It's about time. And when we get on the other side, we're going to unpack and everything will be different. Everything will be different. I don't know how it's going to be different, because you just moved everything from where it was to a new location. And the only thing that's different is that now it's in a tidy box that may or may not be properly labeled. You might have been so desperate just before you moved that you just threw everything in the box and wrote miscellaneous. I mean, how many people here have boxes or bags that are just labeled miscellaneous, as if you actually done something? It's such a, I'm such a non-miscellaneous kind of person.
Sue says, don't trash your move by moving your trash.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to steal that. Then that whole, then the absolutists and the extremists, the people who are, I'm just going to get rid of everything, right? I mean, they saw the movie Minimalism, or they've watched a couple of videos over at the Minimalist, or somehow they're thinking like, I'll just get rid of everything. And that is another version of extreme yo-yo organizing, because when you get rid of everything, and obviously you probably didn't get rid of everything, inevitably you're going to turn around and either you're going to have that horrible pang of, oh crap, I can't believe I got rid of X or Y or Z, I never meant to do that. Or it's not the emotional sentimental thing that happens, but it's just the practical thing of, oh, where's my toilet brush? Where's the sponge? Where's the dish soap? Where's the, where are those shoes? Where's my winter boots? In your imagination, you thought, oh, I'm just going to wear one pair of shoes all year round. That's all I need. And then it snows 20 inches and you think, okay, well, I guess I do need some winter clothes. This next one, reading lots of books. I've written a book, and yet people, I'm trying to remember what the statistic is. I think maybe it's 100,000 books are published every week. I mean, it's like a crazy amount of books that come onto the marketplace. And certainly Unstuff Your Life, my book, is not the first book to be written on organization. But let's be clear, if you look around your home or your office right now, with your face buried in a book, nothing is going to move, right? No amount of it's not an information problem that is the problem. That's not the solution. So, any more than watching TV, and by TV I mean you're not watching necessarily Friends or Will and Grace or Scandal. What you're watching is YouTube videos, which again are just the 21st century version of a book. So no amount of YouTube, Vimeo tutorials are gonna get you organized in and of themselves. Just not gonna happen. Shopping at big box stores, or local stores for that matter. It's the idea that somehow you're going to buy your way out of your organizational challenge, that you just don't have the right container, some different container or some different bag or tub is the solution, and it's not the solution. Mm-hmm. There are self-help groups, but again, in my experience, getting organized is not a talking cure. You can complain to your girlfriends or your boyfriends. You can go to Clutterers Anonymous or other self-help groups. You can go to therapy groups, and I've attended therapy myself. I think talk therapy is great, but in and of itself is not going to. Talking about it is not going to move a single thing off of your kitchen counter or your coffee table or your bedroom floor. It's just not going to happen.
Overwhelm. Always.
Yeah. So there are plenty of ways that people try to get and stay organized that sadly do not work. So this leads us to the story of Steve, who was a private client of mine. And when I met Steve, Steve had attended a class of mine at the Open Center, New York Open Center, and tremendously successful in his professional life, and yet had this secret that he had stopped entertaining years ago. He would meet people at Starbucks. He'd meet them out in the world. Nobody could come over to his house, and he was so conflicted around being financially successful and professionally successful, and at home feeling like just a crazy hot mess that he could not make any headway. And it created this both this cognitive dissonance and also this really deep fundamental emotional dissonance, because he couldn't make sense out of, like, how is it that I could be so successful in the world, and then when I come home I feel completely powerless and I can't affect any change. And he took a class from me at Open Center, and then we started to work privately, and through sharing techniques with him and working with him on his mindset, we were actually able to crack something open and move him through a process, a system, to get him organized. And that was I think about 4 or 5 years ago. And every once in a while I'll get an email from him now. He'll send me photos of his apartment. It's still organized. If he starts to backslide, he knows what to do now. It's pretty remarkable to see that kind of fundamental change happen in somebody who was so stuck in the mindset that nothing. I'm beyond hope, right? I'm the exception. I can't change this.
Andrew, so how many quote unquote successful people do you think struggle with this? I mean, it seems like more people are dealing with disorganization than we're really aware of. But what have you been finding out there? So somebody might be successful, but quote unquote, or not. But what are you seeing? Like, is it like 5% or 10%, maybe more?
Oh no, I would say that I would say probably 70% of the people that I run into who are successful in business also struggle with disorganization. I mean, it's remarkable. And they're psychologists, they're attorneys, they're award-winning chefs, they're award-winning filmmakers and artists. And so, I mean, from traditional profession, like financial advisors, people like that, to, and not that there's no hierarchy, but just on that spectrum from, from people who support themselves in their creative pursuits, like I said, like filmmakers, artists, painters, photographers, to doctors and lawyers and accountants who struggle with this. It's rampant.
So making more money, being more successful, being smarter, all those things don't necessarily solve this.
No. And I think sometimes smart is a challenge, because that mindset, you're trapped in that mindset of, I should be able to figure this out. What's wrong with me that I'm so smart? Why can't I do this?
Right.
There must be, which again just reinforces that concept that there must be something fundamentally wrong with me that I can't do this.
Well, if it's 70%, then that's definitely not true.
Yeah, exactly. So here we go. These are the trade secrets. These are the 3 biggest secrets that pro organizers know about getting and staying organized. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how disorganized you are. There is a way to get organized without being overwhelmed by it. It's a mindset shift, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. You can get organized, and it doesn't take forever, right? I mean, the story says it will take forever, but the reality is that it doesn't take forever. And the last one is that it doesn't matter. Your personality type is not determining your ability to get and stay organized. As we've just said, I mean, people from all walks of life, all professions, people who are independently wealthy to people who are, working 2 jobs or 3 jobs to support themselves. It doesn't, financial security and wealth has nothing to do with your ability to get and stay organized, for better and for worse.
Right.
So this is an actual client's garage. You guys can let me know, those of you who are on the call with us, does this look familiar? Have you seen a room that looks like this anywhere around you at any time? You know, this is an actual photo of a client that I worked with. And what I want you to understand is that you can keep from being overwhelmed regardless of what you're looking at. You can see it, but it doesn't have to become your reality.
So I've had a room like that.
Uh-huh.
And it was in the entranceway of my wife and I's first house. And we had just gotten married and we were building a business and we were so overwhelmed and we just didn't have the mindset and didn't know what the heck to do with all this stuff. And what we would do is people would knock on that doorway and we'd be like, how are we going to get them to come to the other doorway? How do you make it less? How do I do this without feeling awkward? And sometimes you're just like, you know what, I'm going to let them through this door. And it's completely embarrassing. You know, I didn't know this many people struggled with organization because I think we're all hiding it from each other. But I just would feel totally, they weren't judging me, but I would just like, I would be judging myself. Like,
Right.
gosh, I'm trying to be successful as a person. And it just looks like we didn't have it together at all.
Right. So the number 2 secret is that, you know, you can get organized without taking endless amounts of time. Often, as I said, story drives so much of what keeps people stuck. And I talk about this a lot. I talk about story a lot, and this idea of what I call bad math, that people get, they either inflate or deflate math and the time. We've got 24 hours in a day. Everybody gets the same 24 hours. How you spend the time is completely up to you. But this idea that I don't have enough time to get started. Again, the later someday thing, I need more time. It's amazing what you can do in 15 minutes if you know what to do in those 15 minutes. You can make tremendous headway. And it's also amazing what you can't get done in 3 hours if you've scheduled them, if you just sit and keep pacing around the garage or your living room, staring at the mess, thinking, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I thought this was going to be easier, and it's just not.
So if you're winging it, it can take a long time.
Oh my God, yes. I mean, if you do not have a plan, if you don't have a system for moving forward, it's a wing and a prayer. You're just making it up. It's like, this is like the people who write on the back of an envelope before they leave the house that they think that that's their schedule for the day, and that's going to get them, or a series of Post-its, and that somehow that's going to move them through time and space in an effective, efficient way, and they're going to get where they want to go. It's the same thing if you try to organize without a plan, without a system. You just keep picking stuff up, trying to make a decision. You set it back down. You think, well, I can't do that. I'll go over here.
And out of curiosity, just another show of hands, nobody can see you. How many of you do this? Just out of curiosity, I want to see where the numbers go. Yep.
There we go.
We're seeing a good percentage of folks on this call, so know that you're not alone either.
Yeah, you're definitely not alone. No, I mean,
it can be about the energy too. Like when I think I don't have time, it's often I don't have the energy, and I don't have the energy because I don't have the clarity.
Exactly. And then the third secret is that, you know, somehow you're fundamentally broken, or that your personality, you know, I'm not a type A personality. I wasn't born with the organizing gene, as if, I don't think in mapping the genome that they have found the organizing gene. I don't think that has, that might be a Nobel Prize in the making for somebody if they could actually find that. But in my experience, and I think my mom's on the call, I'm not gonna activate her microphone, but I know that she would attest to, when I was growing up, I was not the most organized kid. I was not tidy. And, you know, I would drop my clothes on the floor, and like magic, the next day they'd be clean and back in my closet or my dresser. So I didn't, you know, it didn't occur to me. I didn't connect the dots. Like, how did that happen? Right. I mean, now I did learn that I needed to put them down the laundry chute. I mean, that was a learned behavior, right? That leaving them on the bedroom floor, I got yelled at. If I put them down the laundry chute, that was all that, like, that was as far as I had to go to deal with the laundry. But it was I mean, I was a messy kid. The basement, I would play in the basement and leave things wherever I was done with them. The books didn't go back on the bookshelf. The albums didn't go back in the sleeves. I just left things laying around because I was too busy. I didn't know what to do. I I didn't have any clarity around it.
So why is it? Okay, so Gary in the comments, he's joking. He said, "You mean it's not genetic? I've been blaming my parents for years." So what is going on with this? Why do some people are like clean as children and get messy as adults, or messy as children? So what's going on there? Like, regardless of personality, like what have you found?
That it's values. It's about what matters to you, and getting clear about your values, and returning to those, because so many people are concerned about comfort, and comfort is relative, right? I mean, I think everybody who's on this call probably has a roof over their head, probably has clean clothes or almost clean clothes on their body, is not hungry like they're starving. I mean, they might be hungry because they haven't eaten dinner, or but they have access to food. So your basic comfort is taken care of. And yet we spend a lot of time, certainly in this culture, focused on, oh, it's outside of my comfort zone. I don't want to be uncomfortable. I'm not comfortable with that. And I think that the idea of momentary discomfort for the long-term fruition of beyond a goal, an actual value, is where the focus has been misplaced. Because your values is what's going to pull you out of that energy suck when you feel demoralized. The value is what you're going to be able to tap into and say, it's because I want my word to mean something, because I want to show up in a different way in my life, not in a manic way, again, like the kind of up and down yo-yo, frenetic and then exhausted thing, but the slow and steady, I want to live my values, and I'm tired of being out of integrity with myself and out of alignment with my values. And that is a mindset shift that folks have to go through to be able to turn the corner.
Okay. And you mentioned uncomfortable. Do you find that the people you train are feeling uncomfortable when they start organizing?
I think there's a bell curve that it starts with a certain amount of, I'll bet it's called discomfort, when it is just foreign. So I think that there's probably a labeling problem there, where people are saying, oh, I'm uncomfortable, just because they're doing something not familiar to them, or infrequent.
So the discomfort could even be coming from a lack of clarity.
Exactly.
Okay. Got it. That's an interesting way to put it, that it's foreign and that it could be mislabeled. I've never heard it that way.
Yeah, because I think that people tend to want to slap a name on something or a label, and if it's unfamiliar, you're going to just call it's uncomfortable. Instead, I mean, the first time I taught online, so there's two things I want to share here. One is, the first time I taught online, I had no idea how to use this platform, and I was overwhelmed at the prospect of trying to manipulate technology and at the same time show up and be my authentic self, speak clearly, and communicate effectively, right? And now I've done well over, I think, 250 live webinars, and working online is as comfortable to me as working in person. The other thing I wanted to share was this thing that that I read from Simon Sinek once, where there was a study done of Olympic athletes, and they discovered with Olympic athletes that so many of the things that average people, I'm not an Olympian, when we get nervous or anxious, all of the physiology that happens there is the same physiology that happens when Olympians are about to compete. We view it as anxiety, fear, nervousness, being scared, being overwhelmed. They view it as excitement. The race is about to begin. And it's just another mindset shift, that instead of being overwhelmed by something, they're actually fired up. Your palms get wet, you start to sweat, your heart starts to go faster, you shortness of breath. All of the same physiology happens for us ordinary people, and we are overwhelmed. They are fired up and excited. Simple mindset shift. So some more limiting beliefs, right? I'll get distracted. Shiny object syndrome. Happens all the time.
You're organizing and you see something nostalgic, sit down with it for 10 minutes and then you're done organizing.
Right. And suddenly you're in the, somebody's starting to raise their hands again. It's like, I'm going to start looking through the photos instead of, you're not organizing the photos anymore. Now you're taking a trip down memory lane.
Actually, there's a reason possibly behind this, and I'm not a neuroscientist. I've just worked with people that are, and they say that when we're unclear, so our brain is in chaos. So if we have a conscious goal, such as I'm going to get organized, but we have a non-conscious lack of clarity or fear of what am I going to do, and I'm uncertain. So the brain's actually in chaos when that's happening. When the brain is in chaos, it wants to seek comfort to get back to safety. So when we're trying to organize and we see something nostalgic, or hey, this looks more, the brain goes, that's comfortable, and because it doesn't have clarity, so it's just trying to get us back into a safe place again.
That is interesting.
Super interesting stuff, and it is fun to be nostalgic, especially if you haven't seen something in a while. But there's a deeper possible scenario happening of our brain actually desiring to procrastinate.
Right. It's sort of overriding our desire to organize. Is actually the brain is fighting that and saying, let's just sit, let's make a cup of tea and let's look through the photo album one more time.
Yeah, because if we're feeling like we want to protect ourselves from being disappointed again, or if we're feeling unclear, the subconscious mind is just going, let's put on the brakes here. Let's find a shiny object and let's just enjoy it. Let's just sit on the chair here and go through a photo album. That's much more comfortable. So that's, again, it comes from a lack of clarity.
Yep. I've tried everything. Again, it's one of those 200 lies, speaking in absolutes, right? I've tried everything, nothing works. It's not true. And it's just not true. Chances are you haven't tried everything. You've tried what you've tried so far, and you'd be much better off if you could dismantle some of that all or nothing thinking, right? I can't apply what I learn, which is I don't know what that's about. Do you have any ideas about that, Brian? I think that where that disconnect comes from, like you have book knowledge, but somehow it doesn't translate. Is there any brain science that you've got in your back pocket about that?
Well, I think it still comes from a lack of clarity. So you might have learned some principles, but you don't know exactly the step-by-step. What I found a lot of times is people that are feeling a lack of confidence or a lack of follow-through, or typically they're lacking that next 1 or 2, 3 or 3 little steps to get from where they are to where they want to go. So they're not seeing that. They might see the big picture. Okay, I get that to be organized, I need to do X, Y, and Z, but how specifically, what is the exact next thing I need to do? Like I've had calls where I'm coaching people in business and they want to talk about confidence. And I'll say, okay, we're going to talk about confidence at the end of the call, but let's talk about the exact step-by-step things that you need to do to get from where you are now to where you want to be. And at the end of the call, we don't need to talk about confidence anymore.
Right.
So it might be that they've learned something, but they still don't know exactly how it ties into their situation. That's almost always, I think, what it is, but I don't know everyone's situation.
Sure. That's very helpful, though. No, because I think that there is, I think it's the translation also, just in that big picture, no baby steps to get how are you going to make the big picture happen, right? I need someone else to be there to help me. And whether that's literally a helper or it's a babysitter, even though we're all adults, that idea of somebody that it's too lonely, it's a lonely activity, and that you want some company.
Andrew, it seems like a lot of what you're talking about is what you talk about in open office hours, which is story.
Oh, yes.
A lot of it is story, and whether, all of the story is valid, but and what Brian is talking about as far as clarity, part of that is cutting through the story, right. Dealing with certain things, even if it's something as with as much gravity or grief as loss, and not being sure what to do with a loved one's things that they left behind, or whether it's, oh no, I need another person to help me do this to push through. A lot of that is narrative. Could you speak a little more to that?
Sure. I mean, story is the thing that keeps people bound. It's so seldom the object itself. It is the story that is the thing that the object in and of itself doesn't have a story. I mean, other than Cabbage Patch dolls or, American Girl dolls, objects don't arrive with story. We endow them with story. And that is the thing that's where people get trapped. And sometimes they don't even know that it's a story. I mean, that's how deep the story runs sometimes, is it's like, it's the folklore of the object.
Yeah.
So
I've felt a lot of weird emotions around getting rid of stuff, and it started. Yeah, Maya's totally right. Story has a lot to do with this too.
Yep. It's too hard to decide what to let go of, and there's that fork in the road. I'd feel too guilty, or I just love everything. That idea of it's all beautiful, it's all wonderful. Again, we're speaking in absolutes, right? Not everything is equally beautiful and wonderful and yummy, but that we go to those places. And then the thing about the guilt, where my mother-in-law gave it to me, or my mom gave it to me, or my best friend gave it to me and now they're gone, or whatever that is, where that guilt comes from, where you feel like, no, I would just be too much of a jerk, I have to keep it.
And how many of you have something right now that you've held on to because somebody's given it to you, but it has no value or use in your life? And yep, we're seeing a lot of hands go up.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm afraid I would fail, so I'd rather not try. That's for all the perfectionists in the room. That it's just better to stay on this side of it, because I don't want to disappoint myself. Like, it's that my heart can't be broken one more time. So I'd rather just live with the devil I know than take a chance on the devil that I don't know. This sucks, but what if that sucks more? What if the process is so painful and so upsetting that it's worse than living with the clutter, which it's hard for me to wrap my mind around, but I certainly know that there's people who are stuck in that place, right?
Yeah, the fear of disappointment, I think we talked about, it's one of the biggest fears out there right now.
Right. I have ADHD and I can't stay focused for very long. I say this all the time. If you were diabetic, you would learn to manage your blood sugar. You don't get a pass just because you can only stay focused for 7 minutes at a time. You have to figure out how you're going to leverage that and make that work for you, instead of just say, because it's the same thing if you look at somebody who has brown eyes and you have blue eyes, or somebody who's 6 feet tall and you're 5'2". There's no answer to, like, why is this the package that I'm in? It's the package that you're in. There's got to be a way to work with that and turn a deficit into an asset, leverage it in a way that moves you forward, rather than being stuck again in the story in which you as the hero of the story are always the victim and losing. You're never the triumphant hero. You're always the hero that is vanquished.
Yeah, I call it the underdog story.
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of us resonate with underdogs, and I had a big underdog story for a while, and you almost like that's how you feel you are, and you always will be.
Right.
It's, yeah, not fun.
Yep. I'm unique. If you had my life, you'd be cluttered too. So that somehow your circumstances, this is that more of that exceptionalism, that somehow you are the only person who's ever had these particular circumstances in your life, and you are trapped by them, and there's no way out, right? I mean, this is the crappy hand of cards that you've been dealt, and you can't do anything about it. The shame of, I can't let people know how bad it is. That's the hiding and the putting on a happy face, but secretly being embarrassed and not letting people into your home and all of that kind of stuff. I live with other people and they are the problem, not me. Maybe. Maybe. And maybe you're part of the problem too. I mean, you married them, right? Or they're your kids, they're your parents, or they're your partner, they're your roommate. Somehow you're in orbit with these people. It can't just be them. And conversely, right, I live with other people, they aren't supportive. They don't think that there's a problem. They apologize for you. They make the excuses for you. Well, it's okay. You can't help yourself. There's the more of that lineage stuff of, my mom or my dad, my aunt or my uncle is a hoarder. I'm afraid I'm one too. It's not something that's genetic. I mean, there's certainly an environmental piece to it, but given that we know that it isn't a gene, you just by the fact that you grew up with somebody who has a problem collecting things and holding on to things doesn't necessarily mean that you are too, right? I need somebody's permission, or that getting organized is going to be too expensive. This one, you really have to ask yourself, right? I mean, how much money does it cost you to be disorganized? What are the opportunity costs that you lose by being late, by having to replace your mobile phone, by getting the locksmith out to drill a hole into your door to open the door for you? I mean, there's all of these opportunity costs that are somehow not accounted for when you're doing that math about it's going to cost too much money to get organized.
Mm-hmm.
So
for me, I just wasn't fulfilling as much potential as I could with my work because of all the overwhelm at home.
Right. You're just not productive in the way that you want to be.
Yeah.
Right. So these are the secrets. I mean, they're only secrets when you don't know them. Once you know them, they're not so secret, right? I mean, there is a way to get organized without stress, without anxiety, and without being overwhelmed.
Awesome. So we talked about clarity, we talked about mindset, we obviously just touched the surface. We talked about, systems. So what can people do if they want help getting the clarity, getting the mindset dialed in, and getting the systems or whatever it is in place so that they can, get organized?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've got a couple of choices. They can bring in an expert like me. They can hire a professional organizer to create that system and that structure for them in their home, or they can do something like go to Unstuff University, and the Unstuff Your Life system is a way that they can create. They don't need to create it. They can actually climb inside the structure that's been built for them. If
I just saw a comment from AMG. I had stuff in storage for 6 years, needed nothing in the unit, paid nearly $22,000 in rental fees. Huge regrets.
There you
So
go.
it does cost to do nothing. Holy smokes.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, the question is really, if you followed a step-by-step system that was designed to do all of these things, do you think that it would work for you too? I mean, that's the question to everybody who's listening in is, I mean, when you sit and think about the lack of clarity, the system is the thing that's going to pull you through. It's not willpower, it's not motivation, it's not magic.
Mhm.
It's not the golden ticket inside the Willy Wonka candy bar. It's a system. Sorry?
Not a major epiphany or
No.
anything too climactic.
No, it's not the end of the second act in the Hollywood blockbuster when suddenly, the thing from your childhood comes back and you're like, oh, that is the missing piece, right?
Yeah.
There's no montages
No.
or Rocky theme music that will start playing. I've looked for it before in my own life. It just doesn't happen.
No, exactly. So it's possible, I mean, at this point in this presentation, it's possible that you are excited and also overwhelmed, right? I mean, there's hope, and as you look around, I mean, I'm looking around here, it's pretty tidy, but as you look around where you are, it's likely that you could be feeling overwhelmed, like what can I do? What is next?
Right. So can you outline, Andrew, some of the things that you put together to help people with this?
Sure. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I created the Unstuff Your Life system, and it's a soup to nuts solution. After 21 years, I discovered that the system needs to be built. That all of that story, all of those escape routes that people are looking for, they need an ironclad system that they can climb in. It doesn't matter about their personality, doesn't matter about the time component, it doesn't matter about feeling overwhelmed. If you walk into the system and you do your homework, you'll come out the other side, you'll be organized. So I put together all of the tools that I've developed over 21 years, including a workbook. They get instant access to all of these tools. We don't drip it out. You get the entire, you get the whole enchilada. There's step-by-step instructions that I provide to you. They're easy to use tools. They're simple. It's the video instruction is fun and fast-paced, and you get to have that sense of being with an online community, so you're not alone. We've got a private Facebook group, and all the people that are on the call with us now. I mean, this is the Unstuff Your Life community, so you're not alone, and you don't have to do this alone. You get a 30-minute strategy lifeline call with me, so not only do you get this entire system, but you get direct one-to-one time with me to make sure that if you are stuck at any point in the way, I'm there. I'm your lifeline. You just have to get on Zoom with me, and we solve the problem.
You work through story, you work through tactics, and
I meet you right where you are. And as you were saying with some of your coaching calls, when they come on thinking it's one thing, and by the time they get off the phone, the confidence thing has been taken care of. It's the same thing. I mean, whatever it is that they're presenting with, when folks they think they're getting on the call to find out about something else, but then they get a different piece of information that unlocks something, and it gives them added clarity to then move back into action.
So if you could summarize what this system is in just a short 1 or 2 or 3 sentences, what would you say this really does for people?
Well, it takes them from overwhelm, from not knowing how to manage their time, and from not understanding the fundamental steps to take, to providing them a very clear roadmap from starting to finish that's quantified, that yields. It's a proven process that delivers reliable results.
Awesome. So Carol asked if we had instructions on how to use a scanner to organize paperwork and photos.
We certainly talk about that in the papers and filing class. Yep.
Awesome. We cover it, Carol.
Yep. So, part of the process of putting together this system was discovering the need in the field, if you will, as I work with people that either they couldn't afford to work with me. So I had one client, we'll call her Betty. And You know, Betty was, she was a different kind of yo-yo organizer in that she would bring me in. We would do about 10 hours worth of work. She would make progress, and then she would, I don't want to say that she would run out of money. She was not careful about how she was managing her money. So then I would become the person that would get laid off in the system, right? In her team of people that was working with her. She would try to do it by herself. She would flounder around for a while, and then 3 or 4 months she'd call me in. And we spent so much time having to go back, almost like Chutes and Ladders, if you remember that game from when you were a kid. You know, we would make progress, but we would have to go back and, well, so where are your taxes? Where are your taxes at now? What's up with your papers? What's up with your files? Did you ever do X, Y, or Z? I left you with homework. Did that get done? And the answer inevitably would be no. And so we would spend so much time having to go back and crank it up. I think it's one of the laws of entropy, right? A body in motion tends to stay at motion. A body at rest tends to stay at rest. And it takes so much more energy to move into action than it does to stay into action. So the whole point of this system is that once you're engaged methodically, consistently as you walk forward. It breaks apart that Betty challenge of starting and stopping and having to gear up and move forward again.
And Chantel says that this is it's a life change, not just a tactical change.
Say that again, please.
Chantel says that this is a life change. It's not just all tactics.
No, it is not. Exactly. This is a fundamental shift in how you relate to objects. And I promise you, I mean, for those of you who have already spent time with me, you know that you can't look at objects the same way after having spent as little as a half an hour with me. That the language has shifted. People are raising their hands. Stephanie's just raised her hand 4 times. It just happens. You can't help but shift how you think about things. And that is the power in the system, is that it reinforces that new way of looking at stuff so that you do get to change your life, right? So which leads me to this other case study of, we'll call him Bob. And Bob used to struggle with, Bob was a filmmaker. Well, he is a filmmaker. He's not dead, so I don't want to talk about it in the past tense. Bob is a filmmaker. And so Bob is deep in story. Bob lives in story. And yet Bob would want to tell me the story of every object that was around him. And Bob had traveled the world as a filmmaker. So he had amazing things, and yet he had too many amazing things. And he had so many amazing things that you could no longer distinguish one amazing thing from another thing. It was just a pile of crap, sadly. And he would just get lost in the story. And one of the key things that we did together was get him to start to recognize that story stops here, action begins right here, right? That you can tell me the story, but the story is not going to move you forward. It's the action that you're going to take. And again, returning to your values and understanding that he wants to be able to travel. He wants to be able to rent his apartment when he's gone. All of these things that he can't do because he's stuck in that story.
Yeah.
And then the last case study that I wanted to share with everybody was, we'll call her Sue. And Sue is, again, Sue's not dead. Sue was the know-it-all. Oh, I know. I got it. And yet nothing changed. So Sue was an example, actually, of that. She had all the knowledge, right, and none of the execution. So Sue was the perfect foil for no, I got it, and yet there was no follow through. There was no accountability. There was no way for her to take the steps forward, because she kept getting trapped in her own head around, I know how to do this, I know how to do this, and yet would consistently not do it. And when she would start something, not finish it. So the question is, who is Unstuff University for? Who is the Unstuff Your Life system for? And it's really for everybody. This is the community. And this is obviously not all of the community, but these are the people that make up Unstuff University. It's somebody who lives in the story of too much to do, not enough time. Somebody who just by looking at stuff feels overwhelmed and can't seem to move forward. And somebody who struggles to move step by step through a process, who gets mired down in story and gets lost.
And it's pretty diverse as far as I know, right? With different personalities, different professions. It's not just one type of person that's in here.
No, men, women, old, young. It's the spectrum. If you are struggling with stuff, you are the ideal candidate for Unstuff University and the Unstuff Your Life system. It was built to support everybody. I mean, it really is not one size fits all, but it is certainly a proven process that delivers a reliable result. So imagine if your life were 100% organized today, if this were your closet, right? I mean, imagine if that were your closet, if this were your kitchen, if that were your pantry, if that were your garage, right? If that were your desk. It's possible. I mean, you can look around. This is it, right? I mean, this is where I live, and I don't have any scary bags of crazy in the closet that I put away before you all showed up tonight. It's totally possible. And my mom will guarantee you that it didn't start like this. When I lived in her house, this is not what it looked like. So Brian, I mean, when we were talking, it seems like there's two choices, right? I mean, you do nothing and you have a garage or you have a space that looks like this, right? Or, you can take a leap. And if you do what you usually do, you'll get what you usually get. A mentor of mine taught me that a long, long time ago, and it's true. I wouldn't be the most organized man in America. I wouldn't have built this business and developed this system if I would have said at that critical point, no, that's not really my thing. I'm just gonna stay in the theater. I don't really want to help this Nobel Peace Prize winner. I don't want to learn something new. I don't want this adventure. I'm just going to stay over here, right? I mean, there's a money back guarantee. You got a 30-day money back guarantee. So again, it's not about making anybody a hostage or taking your money. Try the system. You've got absolutely nothing to lose because you're going to get it all back. If you don't like the system, if it doesn't work for you, if it doesn't yield the results that you're looking for, you can get your money back. So we've made it about as painless as it could possibly be to take that leap. So wouldn't it be great to finally get rid of overwhelm, clutter, and embarrassment and feel energy, freedom, and confidence? I mean, this stuff always makes me cry because I know that it's true for it. You are not the exception. You are the rule. You can have an uncluttered, unstuffed life. This isn't beyond your reach. It isn't beyond your ability. If you can brush your teeth every morning, if you can put on clothes, if you can make a meal, if you can go to a job or go to school, you can get and stay organized. This is not brain surgery. It's not rocket science. You're capable of doing it, and we built the system for you to be able to do it. You just have to follow the instructions. You don't even have to, I mean, I don't want this to sound condescending. You don't have to really think much. You just have to take the next step. It's already been mapped out for you. So.
Excellent.
So, I mean, we have, I think, a few minutes for questions. If there's any more questions that have come in, and I know that we had some. Go ahead.
The PayPal link doesn't seem to be working. The second link doesn't work either. So we can work on that.
Maya, why don't you send, put in the link to the Unstuff You page at andrewmellen.com, because I know that that button is working. So if I'm sorry that it's one extra step, but if you can give them to, andrewmellen.com/unstuffyou, if they go to that page, there is the PayPal link is working there. So
yeah, thanks for letting us know, Bill.
yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, I don't know why that happened, but we'll work on that for the next time we do this. All right, well, with that, I think we're going to wrap up for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for signing up for the Unstuff Your Life system. If you have questions, again, you can send those to ooh@andrewmellen.com. We will get back to you if there's any challenges you had with the purchasing. We'll make sure to take care of that. And with that, I want to bid you a fond farewell for now. Brian, thanks so much for joining us. Maya, as always, thanks for being the awesome support and production person that you are. And we'll see you all soon, very soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.